Hello friends, you are welcome in video lecture series on Bryophytes. So today I am going to discuss the reproduction in Rixia. So reproduction in Rixia takes place by two methods. The first method of reproduction in Rixia is by vegetative reproduction method, and another method of reproduction in Rixia is sexual reproduction method. So by both means, by vegetative method of reproduction as well as by sexual reproduction method, the new plants are regenerated or new plants are developed in this Rixia type. So if we observe the vegetative reproduction method takes place by different sub methods. For example, number 1, fragmentation; number 2, by adventitious branches; by tubers; by rhizoids; and by death of the thallus. So how this reproduction, vegetative reproduction, takes place? By the first method, fragmentation. So during this method, death and decay of older dichotomous region of the parent thallus takes place. For example, this is the thallus. So if this thallus, if it is old, mature, if this portion of the thallus decays, older portion decays, these two lobes of the thallus, they get separated, and these two lobes afterwards develop into the two independent plants. That means due to the death and decay of the older portions of the thallus, from dichotomous region, lobes get separated, and from these lobes new plants may be developed. So this is a very simple method of reproduction by death and decay of the older portion of the thallus from dichotomous region. Then second method, which takes place by the development of adventitious branches. So in some species of the Rixia, from mid-ventral surface, this is the dorsal surface, from middle region of ventral surface of the thallus, adventitious branches are developed. So these adventitious branches, they get detached from the mid-ventral surface of the thallus, and after detachment of these adventitious branches, the new plants may be developed. Then next method is by development of the tubers. So development of tubers takes place at the apical regions of the thallus. So this is the dichotomous region. This is one lobe, this is another lobe. At this one lobe, one tuber is developed, and this another lobe, another tuber is developed. That means these tubers are developed at the apical regions of the branches, and these tubers, under favorable conditions, develop into the new plants. That means this is the very simplest method by the development of tubers, and after getting favorable conditions from these tubers, the new plants are developed in some species of the Rixia. Then next method of vegetative reproduction, which takes place by development of new plants by rhizoids. So for example, in Rixia glauca, the apices or apical regions of the rhizoids, they redivide constantly and produces a mass of cells, and from this mass of cell becomes thick, and from this mass of cell new plants may be developed. That means this mass of cell is having chloroplast, nucleus, hood material, etc. And all the cells in this mass are having ability to develop the new thallus. That means the apical regions of the rhizoids, cells in the apical region of the rhizoids having the ability to divide constantly, repeatedly, and forming the mass of cells, and from the mass of cell the new thallus may be developed in some species of the Rixia, for example, Rixia glauca. Last method of vegetative reproduction by death of the thallus. So, for example, in Rixia discolor, by the death of the thallus, when thallus becomes mature, when life cycle comes to an end, at that time, death of the thallus is obvious. Death of the thallus is common thing. When thallus dies, it dries. At that time, the apical region of the thallus remains as it is. That means except the apical portion containing apical cell. Whole portion of the thallus, death of the whole thallus takes place except the apical region, and in this apical region, after the death of the thallus, except the apical region may be buried in the soil, and this apical cell in the apical region is having ability to divide, redivide and produce the new thallus in the next season, in the next year during rainy season. So that means after the death of the thallus also some cells remain as it is, living in the apical region. Death of the whole thallus may take place except the apical region, and in this apical region cells may be there which are living one. They are buried in the soil, and after starting of the next rainy season, these cells multiplies and give rise to the new Rixia thallus. So these are the various different methods of vegetative reproduction of Rixia. Then next method, which is very important in Rixia, with the help of sexual reproduction. So sexual reproduction in Rixia begins or starts after the maturity of the thallus. When the thallus becomes mature, it starts to develop the reproductive structures in the form of anthedium, in the form of archegonium. So anthedium is the name of male reproductive structure. Archegonium is the name of female reproductive structure. So these both reproductive structure, anthedium and archegonium, they are developed on the dorsal side of the thallus endogenously inside the thallus tissue, gametophytic tissue. On this mid dorsal line, on the dorsal side of the thallus, this anthedium is developed in the anthedial chamber. So this is the anthedial chamber. That means some cells in the thallus disintegrates and forms the cavity. This cavity is commonly known as anthedial cavity or anthedial chamber. So inside this anthedial chamber, a club-shaped, oval or spherical body is developed. So this spherical, oval or club-shaped body is commonly known as anthedium. So if we observe the structure of anthedium, anthedium structure is divided into two parts. This apical portion is known as body of the anthedium, and basal portion, narrow region, is known as stalk of the anthedium. So body of the anthedium is enclosed by single layered jacket wall. Inside this jacket, many androcytes are there. So these androcytes later on metamorphoses into the actual male reproductive structure, which are commonly known as anthrozoids. So such male sex cells are produced in this male reproductive structure known as anthedium. So anthedium is a name of male reproductive organ, male reproductive structure, which contains androcytes. So from each androcyte, such many male sex cells, commonly known as anthrozoids, are produced. So each anthrozoid is having two flagella at their anterior end for locomotion or movement, prominent nucleus, dense cytoplasm, etc. When archegonium is developed, it is responsible for development of female sex cell. So archegonium, structure of archegonium is very simple. It is flask-shaped structure. Narrow region is known as neck region. Basal bulbous region is known as ventral region. Ventral region contains two cells, ventral canal cell and egg cell. Neck region is made up of two rows of neck cells, and which are enclosing the 4 to 6 neck canal cells. This central row of cell is commonly known as neck canal cell row. These two rows, peripheral rows, are commonly known as neck cells rows. And apical tip portion of this neck region is covered by 2 to 4 cover cells. So when this archegonium is developed, inside this archegonium, the ventral region develops the egg nucleus. Egg cell contains egg nucleus. It is actual female sex cell. And anthedium develops the male sex cell in the form of anthrozoids. After development of these anthrozoids and egg, the next process begins. Which is the next process in the sexual reproduction? We know very well. After development of male and female gametes, the fertilization begins. So fertilization requires water. It is the important character of this bryophytes. That means with the help of drop of the water, when this wall of the anthedium absorbs the water, when cell imbibes, automatically a slimy substance is produced, and along with this slimy substance, these antherozoids are liberated out, and they are coming towards the archegonium. When archegonium becomes mature, the cover cells disintegrate, neck canal cells disintegrate, ventral canal cells also disintegrate, and empty passage is developed. In order to pass this antherozoid towards the egg, so with the help of drop of water or slimy substance which is produced due to disintegration of neck canal cells and ventral canal cells, a slimy substance is produced. So this slimy substance, due to some chemical attraction, these antherozoids are attracted towards this egg, and many antherozoids are coming towards this archegonium, but only one antherozoid. Many antherozoids are coming towards the archegonium, but only one antherozoid is succeeded to meet with this egg nucleus. After union of this antherozoid nucleus with this egg nucleus, zygote is developed inside this ventral region, and development of zygote, formation of zygote is the initial stage, first stage in the beginning stage of development of this sporophyte. That means sporophyte development starts in this ventral region itself. When this zygote is developed, at that time this calyptra is developed from the wall of the venter. That means this archegonium basal portion is known as the venter. This wall of the venter divides anticlinally and periclinally and forms this two-layer calyptra. And inside this calyptra, this zygote redivides and produces this sporophyte. So this sporophyte, structure of sporophyte in Rixia is very simple. Sporophyte is only having wall of sporophyte containing various developmental stages like spore mother cells, spore tetrads and spores. That means food seta regions are totally absent. That means sporophyte of Rixia is represented by only capsule. So this spherical structure is known as capsule. Food and seta is totally absent. That means in this Rixia, sporophyte is represented only by capsule region, and this capsule region contains wall of sporophyte containing developmental stages. If this sporophyte is young one, it shows only spore mother cells. It only shows spore mother cells. So these spore mother cells are diploid. They undergo meiosis, and from each spore mother cell, 4 spores are developed, which are enclosed inside the tetrads initially. Later on, they get separated, and such tetrahedral spores are developed. If we observe the spores are orange or red or brown in color. Each spore is having 3 spore walls. Outer wall is ornamented. It is known as exosporium. Middle wall is known as mesosporium. Inner wall is known as endosporium. Out of these 3 walls, outer wall is only ornamented or it is spiny. Remaining middle wall and inner wall, exosporium and endosporium, mesosporium and endosporium, they are smooth wall. Then centrally there is a prominent nucleus, dense cytoplasm, and food material may be there in the cytoplasm of the spores. So these spores are liberated after the breaking or decaying the wall of this sporophyte. And when this spore gets suitable condition for germination in the next rainy season, at that time germination of spores starts. When spore germination begins, the outer and inner walls, outer and middle walls breaks, disintegrates, and inner wall, which is commonly known as endosporium. Endosporium comes out and forms the germ tube. That means these 2 spore walls, exterior spore walls, commonly known as exosporium and mesosporium, they disintegrate, and the inner wall, commonly known as mesosporium comes out and forms the germ tube. So in this germ tube, the prominent nucleus, the dense cytoplasm, food material may be there. Nucleus may be there. So at the tip region of this germ tube, the wall is developed and special apical cell is developed. So in this special apical cell, this apical cell divides vertically in 2 vertical divisions takes place in this apical cell. These 2 vertical divisions are followed by 2 transverse divisions, and this 2-tier portion is developed, which is having total 8 cells. In this 4 rows of each cells, 2 work apical cell is developed. Apical cell is developed in these 8 cells, and this apical cell redivides in both sides, at the apical side as well as lower side. These apical cell in 2 tiers of cells or rows of the cells redivides, and young gametophyte of Rixia is developed. Young gametophyte of Rixia is developed. So in this young gametophyte, we can observe this: the lower side of this thallus may develop or produces the rhizoids. That means these are the absorbing regions, absorbing organs in the Rixia. Afterwards, this thallus becomes mature and acquire this such type of shape, or it may shows rosette appearance. So in this way, the Rixia reproduces by both means: by vegetative method of reproduction, which takes place by these 5 different methods like fragmentation, by vegetative method by adventitious branches, by development of tumors, by rhizoids, and by death of the thallus. And sexual reproduction takes place by the development of reproductive structures like Antheridium, Archegonium containing or developing anthrozoids and egg as a male and female sex cells. When these 2 cells comes together, fertilization occurs. After fertilization, there is a formation of zygote. From the zygote, sporophyte is developed, and after development of sporophyte, spores are developed. These spores germinate and develop into gametophyte. That means the gametophytic generation is the basic generation. Main life cycle of the Rixia shows dominant generation is the gametophyte, because this gametophytic generation is responsible for development of gametes, male gametes, female gametes in reproductive structures. That's why it is known as gametophytic generation. After development of gametes, gametes unites with each other and forms the zygote. After formation of zygote, sporophytic generation begins. End product of union of male and female gamete is zygote. From the zygote, sporophyte is developed. That means formation of zygote is the initial stage. After fertilization, formation of zygote is the initial stage in the development of the sporophyte. Sporophyte is responsible for development of spores. So sporophyte is not independent. It depends on gametophyte. It develops endogenously inside the thallus tissue, and after liberation of the spores, spore germinates. Germination of spore is the beginning of the development of this gametophyte. That means the spores start to develop the gametophyte after their germination. That means the gametophytic generation is alternating with sporophytic generation in each and every species of Rixia, or each and every members of the Rixia. So I think I have to explain this article already in previous lecture, alternation of generation. So that's all about this topic. Thanks a lot.